Alright guys, so today, it's getting close to 2017, and I'm thinking next year of starting a business. I'd like to start it with base in motorsports and media, and really it's automotive enthusiast, more or less just trying to make some money, going to the project cars and stuff. Nothing hugely profitable, but let's let it be solvent. How about that? So over this last 8 months really, that I've worked on parting out the 92 Coupe that got wrecked. You guys know that if you watch my channel. I've come up with 10 things that I really have kind of learned, and I had some, I guess, ideas where I thought it was going to be like during this time, and I wrote them down on a piece of paper. I want to share them with you a little bit. If you ever thought about parting cars out for a hobby, a somewhat profitable business, and that, I'd like to get some feedback also. So I'm going to go through these 10 things, and if you've done this before, or if you do it professionally, or even as an enthusiast on the side just to make a little money, I'd like to know your feedback. Do you think I'm spot on, or is there something else I should have thought about? So let's go through these one by one, and I'll show you what I mean. Okay, so item 1 on my list is space. Do you have the space? Now a car itself, as it's all assembled, takes up usually one bay of a garage, I'll say. You can get down the sides, etc. But when you start disassembling it, you start ending up like this. You've got parts everywhere. You can put them in boxes, you've got stuff like engines and transmissions and gas tanks and suspension and all that. This stuff takes all the space. Do you have space either in a garage or somewhere covered that if you don't sell it for a few months, you're not going to leave it out in the rain and the snow? I think you need to think about that. I didn't think about how many parts go into a car. And I'm stumbling over parts even now, and I'm almost out of all the 92 stuff that I was going to sell. So thankfully I've had some storage, but it comes up to floor space and what can you do with what you have available. Alright, so secondly, I think you really need to ask yourself, why are you doing it? Are you doing it as an enthusiast trying to save some parts? Are you getting a crashed car, you're going to use some of it and sell it off? Or is it purely profit at this point? You've got some portion of it invested and you're trying to make that money back and make some money on the side. I think you've got to decide what's best for you, whether you're an enthusiast, you're trying to make money. You've got to decide really what's the reward out of it for you, and if it's going to be rewarding enough for all the labor and everything else you've got to put into it. So item 3 on the list, I think, it's pretty simple, but man, does it make a difference. So when I took everything apart, I either put it in a Ziploc bag that I wrote on what it was on it, or I somehow labeled it. I'll just put it that way. Label everything. By the time you put it all in boxes or bags, or you have it everywhere else, when somebody says, hey, I need some horn buttons, or I need a passenger lock, or something else, you've got to be able to figure out what it is and where it's at. So label it, store it in someplace you know where it is, and try to put pieces together. Put all the passenger door pieces together. The driver's door, the fuel tank stuff, the fuel system, all that stuff. Make it a common piece in the common box. Something that's easy to find, especially if you're going to try and sell it. Or even later on if you're going to try and reuse it. Know what it is. So now as you start getting into it, and you've got your bags and you've got your boxes, one thing you want to think about is, are you actually working on a popular car where people are looking for parts? So with mine, on a Fox platform Mustang, yeah, it's a very popular car. They made hundreds of thousands every year, and they made it for 14 years. Very popular car. There's a lot of ways out there to do it, but if you're going to do something like a 740 Volvo station wagon, I don't know there's a lot of market out there for a lot of those OEM parts. So kind of keep that in mind. If you're going to part cars for a living or for a side business, make sure they're popular enough that people actually want the parts, so you're not sitting on a garage full or a yard full of stuff. Okay, so now let's say you got a popular car, you start to take it apart, you've got parts everywhere like I did. Do you know how to market them? And not really a price point, but what I want you to think about is, how do you advertise parts? Where I live far enough out that within a 100-mile radius of me, I know of 3 people that actually have Mustang like mine, the same generation, and it's a 14-year span. So those 3 people really aren't looking for my parts. But thankfully, through Facebook, through Craigslist, eBay, Kijiji, I think it is in Canada, anywhere else, people are always looking for parts, even on forums. So you've got to be able to know where to market them and how to get out there that you have things. So you need to get into these groups, get into Craigslist, get into eBay, whatever else you can do. There's some apps out there like Let Go and some of these other ones that you can market your parts, but you've got to know how to market them and where to target your audience so that you know what you're selling and what they're looking for, and to be able to correspond back and forth. Alright, so another one to think about. Time. It's always ticking. How long do you have to get this stuff out? If you've got a huge garage and you've got plenty of space, and you're going to, doesn't matter how long, I don't care if I sell it for 5 years, I want to do it. If you're like me, I had a timeline where I wanted my new project car in the garage around Thanksgiving. So I had roughly from, say, the beginning of April to when I had everything sorted out with the insurance to Thanksgiving-ish to get stuff done. So I had to have the 92 stripped, taken out of the garage, and I wanted as much of those parts sold that I wasn't going to use. I wanted them out of my shop. So I gave myself about 8 months, and I'm pushing the limits of it. I think this weekend I just finally got rid of most of it, where I can put it all in boxes and get it up off the floor in the storage. And I've still got a few things, but most of the big stuff's gone, thankfully. So that's something to think about. If you're trying to do it continuously and have the space, maybe it doesn't matter that it takes upwards of 2-3 years to get rid of everything. But if you're cramped on space like I am, I had a time limit. I had to get stuff moving, so I had to be proactive on getting stuff out of here. And sometimes you just have to take a price that you're not really wanting to do, but you get it going. Okay, so now that you've got parts taken off, you're marketing them correctly, you found people that want to buy them, you have to ship them. So next thing that comes up, if you don't work somewhere that has a lot of boxes around, you have to think about, do you have to buy boxes? How do you get boxes for shipping, packing materials? If you're building a car and you're getting a lot of stuff in from the parts houses, hey, you can reuse those boxes as packing material. If you don't, you might have to do like I've done. You hope your wife's shopping a lot on Amazon, or you're shopping a lot on Amazon. Good boxes there. And I've also gone down to the recycling bins at the local fast food. They have small boxes, and believe it or not, Taco Bell, they have some good stuff. I've taken stuff out of their recycling bin, of course. They were okay with it, but I've actually shipped stuff in that. Good boxes, and they've actually fit a lot of good parts. So think about that. You've got to have shipping materials, and hopefully you're not buying them, because that's only going to eat into your profit. Alright, so the second to last thing, probably I'm going to tell you, is that I want you to have profit goals for when you're doing this. For me, when my car was wrecked, insurance paid it off, all that other stuff, and I had this car sitting here, I could have sold it out. Basically, someone would have came and just took what it was. I think I got offered somewhere around $1,000 for the car as it was. Rear-ended, had everything in it, still ran. And to me, no, that's not going to work. So if you're going to have to buy a car, you're going to buy a wrecked vehicle, obviously you want to put the least amount of money into it to do it, to buy it, and then you want to make the most off your parts. So you have to think about, do you want to make 2 times back whatever you buy it for, make 2 times in parts back that? Are you interested in a dollar figure, a percentage, anything else? You've got to make it rewarding for you. So if you're just trying to have some good time over the winter, and you don't really care if you're making any money off of it, you just want the experience, that's fine too. Just make sure you're doing the effort to get the profit out that you're looking for. Okay, now really this is the second to last thing. How do you price your parts? So if you've got parts that you can buy new reproductions of out of a catalog, it's going to be hard to market new stuff, used stuff, to people that want to buy it. They will, but they're not going to pay the retail price of it unless it's brand new in a box, and then you've got the reproductions there. So the rule I have been using, whether you agree with it or not, the rule I have been using, if I can buy it out of a catalog, I'm putting it between 25 and 50% of that retail price. Really, it's going to be, if it's in really good shape, I'll lean towards the 50% of the retail price. And you got to remember, most of the catalog companies, they're offering free shipping. If you have to pay shipping, you're also eating into your profit. Keep that in mind. Now, if you've got a part, it's pretty good shape, it's original, it's used, maybe it's got some scuffs on it, lean down towards the 25% of retail. In there, you're going to find what works for you. If you're in a great area where stuff flies off the shelves, maybe you stay up towards the 50% and you ride it out. If not, you're going to have to drop down a little bit or do some other things like deliver parts. Keep that in mind for pricing parts. You never know what it's going to take, but there's a starting point, I guess. And if you're doing something different, I'd love to hear what your methodology is to price your parts. Okay, last thing to think about. What's going to be left over? Because you're going to have stuff that nobody wants. It's too heavy to ship. You've got fluids that come out of these cars that need to be recycled. Do you have the catch pans to get it all? Do you have a place to recycle it? Can you take it down to AutoZone or an auto parts store to get rid of used oil, coolant, anything like that? My Rex Coupe shell, sitting down at the barn. If you watched the video I released a little bit ago where we yanked it out with a tractor, we drove it down to the barn and I set it there, and it's going to sit there all winter in the snow. I'm going to take it to the salvage yard, but I'm not going to make any money for it, and it's of course going to take my time and gas to get there. So that's a money loser on that. So really you've got to think about what is the stuff that's going to be left. And if you're on a time crunch, you may get to that point where you can't sell the body or the doors or the fenders or anything else. Do you take them off and store them? Or do you just take it down to the salvage yard or give it away for free on Craigslist or anything else? There's always something to think about. You're going to have parts left over. That's the nature of the game. You keep it all, do you sell it, give it away, or do you just recycle it? Alright gang, so that's it. Those are the 10 or 11 things that I really focused on the last 8 months of parting out one car. I think it's a good idea. I like it for myself. I've got the space where I could do this on a little bit more frequent basis, I guess, during the summers. I should have a bay open in my garage where I can do that. And I'm not sure I'm going to, but I've thought about it. So hopefully, if you're thinking about doing parting a car, think about how popular it is. What parts it off? How do you ship it? How do you price them? All that kind of stuff. Hopefully this has helped you out, and if you've done it yourself and you have a different number on there, maybe you don't agree with all 10 or 11 I just told you, but you'd like to share, I'd love to hear them. I think it's a good conversation piece, especially as we get more and more into kind of the older cars, the 80s, the 70s, the 60s that are real popular. They're always looking for more parts. And I think those of us that can save them should. And that's all from this time. Follow me on Instagram on Basin Motorsports. In 2017, I've got a lot more ideas coming up, and I'd like to hear your feedback on all these subjects. We'll see you next time.